Hello and welcome to StarCast from Planet Waves. I'm Eric Francis Compolino, your friendly neighborhood astrologer, here with the edition of StarCast accompanying the August 29th weekly horoscope and article. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being a subscriber if you appreciate the work that I do. So, this week I have returned to news astrology with an analysis of the situation involving Pavel Durov. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I don't think it's Pavel. I think it's Pavel. That's what I'm going to say. Pavel Durov, the co-founder with his brother of Telegram, a wildly popular messaging, chat, and group content distribution platform, currently based in Dubai, originally founded in Russia. Durov, a kind of a Russian dissident who left after allegedly approached by Russian security services vis-a-vis his old previous business, which I guess still exists, kind of a Russian Facebook, and he is said to have said no when Russian security services wanted to use his original platform to spy on people, and then as a result of that founded Telegram, and then left Russia, and then repatriated places like France currently and the UAE, and I don't know if he's got some kind of American citizenship as well, but he's got a few different passports that he flies around with. Allegedly arrested 8 o'clock in the evening at Le Bourget Airport at outside of Paris at 8 p.m. August 24th. And so I've done an article about this, and then I give a look at the chart for the arrest, which is the only timed chart that we have for him. I'm not quite sure how to time the chart for the launch of Telegram, and we don't have an accurate birth time on him. I have checked those charts, his natal and progressed, and the chart of Telegram. I have an idea what's going on, despite not having the timing on those charts. But as is the motif, the modus operandi, the milieu of Planet Waves, I am much more interested in reading the chart for the event. So I do that. It is a very curious chart because given the high-level global billionaire class qualities of this event, there sure does not seem to be very much going on in this chart. So I analyze that out, and I'm interested in your thoughts. I provide the chart that I read. I provide one chart that I don't read, a more complicated chart with modern planets and with minor planets included. But the chart that I read in the article is a very stripped-down chart with just the 7 lights in the sky, that's say 7 visible points, part of fortune, and so forth. Just an old-school chart that you might have read in 1700, for example. And when these kind of things happen, I always make sure that I check in with a classical chart because it's going, whatever you're looking for, it will or won't be findable in that chart. The minor planets might add some details, but the chart without all those things simply has to work as a matter of integrity, or you've got a problem with the event or with the chart itself. So I take you through that, and I'm very curious what you think about this and what it says about the nature of things. And in a future presentation, I will get into the nature of the digital reality that we live in and what this chart might be saying about that. And look, the thing about the digital reality that we live in is its essence is that you cannot tell what is real and what is not. I've been reading a lot of Philip K. Dick stuff the past couple of months, and he is famous for his novels about androids co-inhabiting the planet, but the androids are so lifelike that without some sophisticated testing, you cannot tell which people are essentially autonomous robots and which people are people. Very interesting author. I'm glad that I have gotten into him. I haven't fallen in love with a science fiction author in a long time. And Philip K. Dick is quite accessible and writes in this very straightforward, unpretentious, and journalistic style, but is wickedly funny if you're paying attention to what he's doing. All right, so much for Pavel Durov. I'll leave the rest of that in the article, and I am open to your thoughts and comments. They mean a lot because there's not a hell of a lot of discussion of planet waves at this point. The discussion that does come in means even more. And I would love to teach more astrology and would do so in a moment if there were people interested in the kind of astrology that I do. Okay, so speaking of, the focus of the astrology of what here in the United States is the Labor Day weekend is the Virgo New Moon. That is the sun aligning with the moon in a conjunction that happens every 29 days and a few hours. And this one takes place again in the sign Virgo, September 2nd. That will be Sunday at 9:55 and 22 seconds p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So that would be most places Sunday late in the day and or overnight into Monday. I can never do the New Zealand, Australian calculations on the fly, but I'm sure you down under are accustomed to translating things out of New York time. You've got to just basically jump ahead by something like 14 or 15 hours. So anyway, this is a chart that has a little something to say, and it is in the ongoing series of charts cautionary about what you allow into your mind and think is real. We are now in the realm of the very brief, limited realm of Pluto having retrograded back into Capricorn. And as of Sunday night at this time, 9:55:22, Pluto is at 29 degrees and 59 arc minutes of Capricorn. It is only going to graze the last degree of Capricorn. It's almost a matter of dumb luck that this happened for the third time. Pluto could have just as easily backed into the first degree of Aquarius and stayed there, but no, we're going to have a 10-week phase of what I have been for a couple of years thinking of, all right, this phase, this last visit of Pluto into Capricorn, which lasts into mid-November, is a time for cleaning up old business. So if you have old business to clean up, that is the thing to emphasize, to focus on. And by business, I do mean business, and I also mean matters associated with your family that you need to take care of in order to gain additional influence over your life, your feelings, your choices, your relationships. There's a reason that part of the maturing process, when conducted honestly and in any meaningful way, involves resolving family material, unpacking and dispensing with family baggage in that order. And the reason is because until you do so, you're not really a free person. You are still under the thrall of your family. And we all know the intensity of feelings toward these people called our parents. The various different disappointments and resentments and admiration and longings that we have that become a template for all of our relationships. So at this rare moment, we have Pluto. We're going to have, as of Sunday night, Pluto in the last degree, in the very end of the last degree of Capricorn, and Neptune in the last degree of Pisces. And if you take a look at the chart, which is on this page, you just scroll down a little bit. It's above the paywall, so anybody can see the chart. there's a purple line going from Neptune to a thing that looks like the Pisces symbol. That's all the way to the right-hand side of the chart, but it's Pisces symbol turned sideways at 15 Scorpio. That is called Poseidon. And Poseidon is a very slow-moving point. I forget how many centuries it takes to go around the zodiac, but it goes a lot slower than Pluto and a lot slower than Neptune. It's a trans-Neptunian point. It is one of those hypothetical, theoretical planets that is spending near eternity in Scorpio, and it is talking to Neptune. And together, these two things are warning about this overwhelming deluge, this absolutely ridiculously overwhelming deluge of false information coming to us. And so unless something specifically, personally affects you, some item in the news, for example, and you filtered out the we're going to make this about you by terrifying you, right? If the way that some kind of a news report or something makes something about you is to terrify you or attempt to terrify you, you can be pretty sure that it's got nothing to do with you, that they're only trying to drag your ass into it. But unless something does have that actual quality of affecting you, your local community, or something like that, that is actionable, that you can do something about, the chances are it is complete and total bullshit. I am still involved with what some call Team No Virus. I'm in contact fairly regularly with the Baileys and with Mike Stone and Jeff Strahl and a diversity of other people doing very good work on medical freedom issues, particularly the core science. This group that has sort of made it through all these filtration events of COVID and all the grifting and the terrorism substacks and the complete confusion and the virus pushers against clot shots and all of that. What this small group is dedicated to is core science, the very heart of the scientific matters that involve these things. In other words, no speculation whatsoever. That's a reminder to you that if you ever hear me say something that you think sounds speculative or that sounds a little bit iffy or something like that, write to me, put something in the comments, and I will point you to the resources that I'm using, and I'll even take some time and write out my thought process and explain to you how I got to the position that I have. You will find that most people don't do this, that most people are just saying, nope, it is because it is. We are in the age of what's called a tautism or tautology, where the reasoning process is it is because it is, and that's the way it's always been, and that's the way it'll always be. We're here because we're here, basically, is the nature of the tautology. And I personally think that that's not really about reasoning. So in the middle of this tautology land, we collectively experiencing Neptune sesquiquadrate Poseidon, 135 degrees. That's a very potent aspect. It's a square plus a semi-square, or three semi-squares. So a square is 90, a semi-square is 45. You stack those up, one square, one semi-square, you get a 135-degree angle. This is quite potentially the most important aspect, and it is one that most astrologers do not look at. You need a certain kind of training from what are called Uranian astrologers to be looking at the 135, the sesquiquadrate or sesquisquare. And what it does is it provokes. And so we have one form of deception in mid-Scorpio provoking another form of deception in the last degree of Pisces, and they're bouncing off each other and playing off each other. And it's kind of like, shouting into a can and believing whatever you hear. Only this is on a very magnified level. We've got Neptune quite close to the Aries point. By the way, how did that sneak up on us? That in a matter of months, not years, months, early 2025, we're looking at Neptune in the first degree of Aries. That's nuts. And then that's going to be followed by, it will still take some time, Saturn clearing late Pisces and making a conjunction to Neptune that'll last through 2025 and 2026. That is going to be one of the major topics of the 2025 annual edition. Now that Mercury is not retrograde anymore, I can tell you the name of that. It is going to be called The Awakening. The art is ready. We will have this thing on pre-order, and my intent is to get this thing done earlier than any other annual edition ahead of Mars retrograde, but I am slightly ahead of myself here. Okay, so other things going on in this new moon chart. We are in the we're now past the peak of what I've been talking about for months, that aspect I always draw with a red bar next to it, the group concentrated around Pholus, which currently is Pholus, Ceres, Ixion, Cupido, Quaoar, and God knows what else is in there in the deep background, but 5 points is quite enough, and this thing has been square the lunar nodes. This is another reminder to clean up old business. Break it down, get it done, get the filing done, clean out the car if you get bored with that, sweep into the corners, do that stuff. Autumn cleaning, very good time for this. Get motivated. It will be worth the time and energy. And if you're dealing with anything serious, anything that you consider to be genuinely problematic, this 10-week phase of Pluto in the last degree of Capricorn is your cue to take care of old business. And this whole scene is coming out of Capricorn, where there's two completely different realities brewing in Capricorn. One of them is the Capricorn cluster, early in Capricorn. You can see that on the top right of the chart with the planets both at 7 degrees. One is Ceres, one is Pholus, two very different kinds of planets. And those are at 90 degrees to the lunar nodes, but I have not drawn that in to this chart. But you've heard me talk about this 100 times. When you see this for what it is, I think you will be very impressed. And this is one source of information on resolving old issues in the style of this group in early Capricorn, the emotional ties that bind, especially between mothers and daughters, anything involving food, and anything involving the use and abuse of alcohol. All of that contained in the early Capricorn group, which is the kind of angle on which the lunar nodes are teetering. And without the lunar nodes, there is no progress in life. And the other thing about resolving the past is coming out of the very end of Capricorn, which is Pluto in the very last degree. Other features in this chart include Mars in what I call the Atlantis degree, the 29th degree of Gemini. That's 28 degrees and 57 minutes. There was a time, and I love how this all evolves, where the false flag events, the things that was one thing after the next, this is now going back to around 2001. Really, the first chart where I noticed this going on was the September 11th, 2001 chart. And then this held as a pattern for about 4 or 5 years when there was something in the 28 plus, i.e. the 29th degree of Gemini. You could be sure that you would, if you thought something was off and you went verifying that thing that was off, you would learn more than you gambled for. Meanwhile, we do have Mars in an aspect to Neptune and to Pluto. So there's a quincunx, that's 150 degrees, a little more than a sesquisquare. And it's worth sorting out the difference between these aspects. If you like astrology and like listening to me talk about it, you might really like diving in a little bit and doing something about it. Anyway, this is 150 degree to Pluto, which is intense. That's going to draw out a lot of Mars power out of that aspect of Pluto. But then we have Mars square Neptune. Now, I talked about that. This happens. It's hard exactly to say when it happens, but it's sort of once a year-ish. Then there's the opposition. And so anytime you put Mars and Neptune together in a 90-degree, 180-degree, or 0-degree, meaning a conjunction aspect, the conjunction, the square, and the opposition, you must be on the lookout for potentially self-destructive types of behavior in yourself and in others, often associated with mind-altering, mind-changing, mind-bending, or outright blotto-inducing substances, which have never been easier to find and acquire. And the most casually used of all, being cannabis, is now completely ubiquitous. And I promise I will soon do my presentation on ubiquitous cannabis. If you're interested, I'm not sure which of the Substacks that it's on, but if one person writes to me, all I need is one person to write to me, I will point the entire audience to this Substack, which is a discussion with about 50 comments on what I'm calling ubiquitous cannabis, like the digital realm, which surrounds us everywhere, which you carry in your pocket, and then you have it when you ring your doorbell, because your doorbell is Ring and it takes your picture, and then you go on your computer, and then you're also in digital, and then you spark up your rice cooker, and that too is digital, and then you brush your teeth. It tells you you need to give an extra 10 seconds to your bicuspid, et cetera, et cetera. Every damn thing is digital. And so what I am concerned about, normally I'd be very enthusiastic about something like the legalization of cannabis, which is used as a cudgel against people. I know a man who served 20 years of hard time for possession of cannabis. I stayed in his Airbnb. That's how I met him. When I wrote when I recorded the video for the 2024 annual, I said I was in a place called the Astrology Chalet. Well, that was a very nice Airbnb. The guy built it with his own hands and designed it with his own pencil and his own paper, and it's one of the nicest designed houses I've ever stayed in. When I asked him a couple of questions about who he was, I learned that he had done 20 years hard time, I think in Eastern Correctional, for possession of marijuana. Now, tomorrow, he's opening a dispensary on his property. And you think, well, that really is a good idea. But I'm looking forward to, I'm going to go there tomorrow. I'm going to wish him well. I'm going to make a purchase. I'm going to bring a bottle of wine. I'm going to do what I always do when a new business opens up in my community, and check the vibes and make friends and, bring an apple to the teacher. But my concern is that cannabis is becoming ubiquitous under full digital conditions. It is essentially going to draw more people more deeply into digital conditions. And this is my concern. And this is, to some extent, my concern about Mars square Neptune. With all that action coming out of Capricorn, Ceres and Pholus talking about the grape and the grain, if you remember from last week. All right, so in case you're listening on some outside channel, my Substack can be reached at planetwaves.eu. This all is a production of Planet Waves Incorporated. The homepage is at planetwaves.net. I kind of like the Substack a little bit better these days, but you can subscribe in either place. The Virgo reading is done. That is called Grow What Feeds You. Libra reading coming next. I'm not sure what I'm going to call that. I was looking for art this morning to illustrate that particular product. All of these things are available on the astrology.boutique. If you're feeling tense, nervous, angst, fear, weirdness, like you don't have any friends, go to the astrology.boutique and you will find something that you need. And I am never far from the products I create. Email me anytime you want at efc@planetwaves.net. Have yourselves a lovely holiday weekend if that's what's on your agenda. Lots of love. And bye. Bye for now.